Before we get started, make sure you're wearing your headphones for maximum audio experience.
Hello, my name is El, and welcome back to Rhyme&ReasonPodcast. Today I will talk to you about the art of not giving a fuck. So please excuse my foul language in this episode. The line "I don't give a fuck" is something I often say to myself and sometimes to my friends. But to understand what it really means, you need to understand what giving a fuck means. Giving a fuck means that you care. So by saying "I don't give a fuck" means you don't care. So when I say "I don't give a fuck" about K-drama, it means I don't care about K-drama. It's simple to follow, right? Okay, great. In order to not give a fuck, you need to learn how to follow your own judgment and stop giving a fuck about what anyone else thinks of your choices. To understand how you do this, there are two reasons. One is that you have crab mentality. You believe that you shouldn't climb too high for fear of getting pulled down. Crab mentality, or crabs in a bucket, is a way of thinking best described by the phrase, "If I can't have it, neither can you." The metaphor is referring to a bucket of live crabs, some which could easily escape, but other crabs pull them back down to prevent any from getting out. The human equivalent is that people in a group will attempt to cut down the self-confidence of any person who reaches success beyond everyone else out of envy, spite, conspiracy, or competitive feelings to stop their progress. So ask yourself this. Do the people in your world have your best interests at heart? Have you noticed that when you share your hopes and dreams with certain people, they don't support you in their words or actions? Take a good look at who is supportive of you and your ambitions, no matter how weird and wacky. There are the ones who will want to cultivate deeper relationships with. Try to limit the amount of time you spend with people who spread negativity or doubt. They are likely protecting their own fears on your dreams, and you don't have time to waste on that. This process to stop giving a fuck starts with you identifying the thoughts and people who are holding you down. Then you can gently let go of them with love, or at least limit the time you spend talking about your dreams with them. The second way to look at this problem is by labeling it tall puppy syndrome, which we experience as a culture that loves to tear down people of high status. This limitation means that you get stopped in your tracks is because you're afraid of being resented, attacked, cut down, strung up, or criticized because you are better than your peers. The story plays out by you not being the brilliant human that is full of potential, new ideas, and creativity because there is not enough power and prestige to go around. Our fear is that we will be cast out by the tribe for being too different. Belonging is important, so doing anything that is deemed risky causes a lot of anxiety. Whether you are choosing to live your life in an unconventional way, making a decision about how you make your money or spend your workday, there are lots of things you should be doing according to your beliefs. Those belief systems are the invisible rule of society, but are these rules really real? On a TED Talk, The Magic of Not Giving a Fuck by Sarah Knight, she stated that your fucks should be defined as energy plus time plus money if you don't care about something. So stop giving your fucks about it. Mental decluttering is the first step to not giving a fuck. Make time to declutter everything in your life. Think of it like a messy room. Yeah, you know what I mean. Imagine in your messy room, there are things that you need to bring you joy, and the things that annoy you. Take the time to sort through everything, to remove those that annoy you, and the non-essential stuff that you don't care about. Meaning, the things that you do not really need so you have space for more joy in life. I want you to think about and try to follow the Not Sorry method by Sarah Knight. Step 1. Decide what you don't give a fuck about. Step 2. Don't give a fuck about those things. Simple, right? In this method, you need to be aware of the honesty plus polite criteria. Here is an example on what and where to use the not sorry method. Imagine the scenario in your head where you have been invited by your close friend to watch a movie at their house. Let's say Conjuring 3, but you have seen the movie and you have plans to watch Loki, a new series that you have been waiting for to air for so long. What do? You don't want to feel guilty about not showing up to your friends' movie invite, but you also don't want to miss the first episode of Loki because you know you will see a lot of spoilers on Twitter. In this scenario, you need to think about what makes you feel more joy. Is it watching the new episode of Loki, or rewatching The Conjuring 3 for the sake of watching it with your friend? This is where the honesty plus politeness criteria jumps in. Personally, I would choose to watch Loki because I really do not like to see spoilers, and because Conjuring 3 wasn't all that scary for me. If you tell your friends that you can't make it at a timely manner, then you have done nothing wrong. You don't need to be sorry about it. I mean, you've seen the movie once already and it won't make it scarier by watching it the second time around. You can apply this method to everything: tasks, work, people, activities, and obligations. To make it easier, list down everything in each category that you have to do. Example, work schedule. On your schedule, you have 5 things listed down: mandatory staff meetings, conference calls, participating in a coworker's charity, attending a birthday party for a coworker you do not like, and doing your actual job. Pick and cross out the things that annoy you and stop giving a fuck about it. If you have trouble picking which ones would annoy you and which ones would bring you joy, then try to visualize the scenario in your head. Let's take the birthday party for example. You showed up, you dressed up, you spent money on a gift that you didn't even put much thought into because you don't really like this person. But here you are. You spent time, energy, and money, and what did you get from it? Free food? Is that worth it? Is it worth more than doing your job, where you invest your time, energy, and instead of spending money, you earn money? So which one would annoy you and which one would bring you joy? People tend to impulsively say yes to these types of things because they don't really give much thought into it, nor do they think about the consequences after it. So before you say yes, think about the reasons why you would say no. Alright, now let's talk about The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Mannon. In his book, he wrote 3 subtleties. Subtlety number 1, not giving a fuck does not mean being indifferent. It means being comfortable with being different. If you give a fuck about something, then you give a fuck about not giving a fuck. It is impossible to not give a fuck about something, but the question is, what should you give a fuck about? Subtlety number 2. To not give a fuck about adversity, you must first give a fuck about something more important than adversity. If you worry about what people may think about you, then the problem is not what you think people think about you, it's that you have nothing better to worry about. Subtlety number 3. Whether you realize it or not, you're always choosing what to give a fuck about. Manson makes the argument, backed by academic research and well-timed group jokes, that praying our lives hinges not only in our ability to turn lemons into lemonade, but on learning to stomach lemons better. Human beings are flawed and limited. Quote, not everybody can be extraordinary. There are winners and losers in society, and some of it is not fair on your fault. End quote. Mannon advises us to get to know our limitations and accept them. Once we embrace our fears, faults, and uncertainties, once we stop running and avoiding and start confronting painful truths, we can begin to find courage, perseverance, honesty, responsibility, curiosity, and forgiveness we seek. There are only so many things we can give a fuck about, so we need to figure out which ones really matter. Manson makes clear, while money is nice, caring about what you do with your life is better, because true wealth is about experience. Quote, the ability to reserve our fucks for only the most fuckworthy of situations would surely make life a hell of a lot easier. Failure would be less terrifying, rejection less painful, unpleasant necessities more pleasant, and the unsavory shit sandwiches a little bit more savory. I mean, if we could only give a few less fucks, or a few more consciously directed fucks, then life would feel pretty fucking easy. End quote.
But wait, before we continue, let me ask you listeners, have you heard of Good Pods yet? It's a new app where you can follow your friends and influencers to see what podcasts they're listening to. So for all of you who spend too much time scrolling around trying to find a new show, this will solve your problems. It works really well. Just download Good Pods from the App Store, pick some people to follow, and invite your friends. You'll never be without a podcast recommendation again. Also, don't forget to follow me. I have my own podcast, as you know. But I love to get and give recommendations from other shows too. Now, back to the show.
In order to not give a fuck, you need to learn what's important and what isn't. In order to be able to know how to not give a fuck, you're really going to have to learn what is important to you and what isn't. It's dumb to actively try and not care about anything, but at the same time, it's important to learn when things matter to you. Focus on them, always, and just forget the rest. If you are always focusing on your priorities and striving for your goals, you won't give a fuck about anything else. You won't let anyone get in your way and you'll say, to hell with the consequences. You won't give a fuck about the things that aren't important to you. So the next time that you don't get something you want or something you hoped you would, really step back and weigh it up. Does it really matter? Do you really care? If the answer is not really, then just decide to not give a fuck and move on with your life. It's as simple as that. So I made a short list about the things that you should give a fuck about. Your career, your business, your time, your money, your health, goals, friends, family, and your partner. So if you focus on these few things, then I promise you, life would be a hell of a lot easier. Next is you need to get to know yourself. Getting to know yourself intensely is so important when it comes to really not giving a fuck. If you don't know what matters to you, then you could end up making mistakes, having a bad attitude, being lazy, or deliberately refusing to do or care or acknowledge something because you are trying to hurt someone or get revenge on them just isn't the way forward. Besides, then everyone will see right through you too, and there is nothing worse than pretending you don't give a fuck about when you actually do. If you aren't convincing, then you'll just end up looking like a fool. That's why it's so important to get to know yourself. Be in tune with your thoughts and feelings, and really accept that it's totally cool to feel and to care, so don't try to deny yourself that. Next is you need to weigh your consequences. One other really important thing to remember when it comes to knowing how not to give a fuck is that you really need to think of the consequences of your actions all the time. It's all well and good not giving a fuck about things, but if you destroy everyone and everything in your path, is it really worth it? You cannot give a fuck about most things without hurting other people, so always try to remember that. And also, be really sure you aren't going to have any regrets, or this isn't going to come back and bite you in the ass another time. Next, you need to grow a thicker skin. Not giving a fuck is also about having a thick skin. You don't have to become an emotionless robot or anything, but at the end of the day, if you are the kind of person who wears their heart or their sleeves and always gets quite emotionally sensitive about things, it's going to be difficult to adapt an attitude of not really caring about things. Try to accept the fact that disappointing, upsetting things happen to everyone, so you need to grow a thicker skin if you want to be better at not caring about them. Be comfortable with it. If you don't give a fuck, you have to own it. At least, it can seem a little weird adopting that attitude. It can really feel rude and mean sometimes. But the more you practice the art of not giving a fuck, the more you will begin to feel comfortable with it, and the more you will realize that it's not just about being rude or pretending that you couldn't care less about anything. It's about zoning in on what's important to you, stopping at nothing when it comes to achieving your goals, and not letting negativity or disappointments get in the way of you enjoying your life. Be confident in your choices. If you decide you don't give a fuck, you have to really believe in yourself. Once you made that choice, there is no going back. So be confident and true to yourself. In order to adapt the air of no fucks given, you need to come across as confident and all in. Then you'll have discovered what not giving a fuck is about and can lead a happier, healthier, more productive life. So what are the things that you shouldn't give a fuck about? I made a short list about the things that you shouldn't give a fuck about, and here it is. You should not give a fuck about what other people think about you, whether or not other people like you, whether or not people approve of your decisions, the things you can't control and can't change, the expectation of others, unless it's your boss or your customers, the opinion of others, especially those who don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Celebrity groups, yeah, nobody cares about that. The latest trends, it's not really that important. The news, well, 99% of it is mostly just clickbait. Before we go further, I want to draw your attention to one of the most common signs that you give too many fucks about, the opinions of other people. Approval seeking. If you're constantly engaging in one or more of these behaviors, you probably give too many fucks. Attention seeking behavior. Apologizing when you have nothing to be sorry for. Asking permission when it's not needed. Being overly agreeable and seeking rapport at all costs. Being overly concerned with the opinions of other people. Being overly loud in order to draw attention to yourself. Dressing in such a way that is likely to draw attention to you. Fishing for compliments. Forcing complimentary attributes or stories about yourself into conversations. Laughing at things that aren't funny. Posting pictures on Facebook and Instagram and social media that you know are likely to result in lots of compliments and likes, and trying to be someone you're not. Do yourself a favor, drop all attachments to what other people think or say or do, and don't feel the need to answer, explain, or justify yourself to anyone. Okay, so here is a quote from Steve Jobs that I really like, and it sort of describes the how to not give a fuck aspect. Quote, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big changes in life. Almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose." End quote. The last quote is from Mark Manson. Quote, "You and everyone you know are going to be dead soon, and in the short amount of time between here and there, you have a limited amount of fucks to give. Very few, in fact. And if you go around giving a fuck about everything and everyone without conscious thoughts or choice, well, then you're going to get fucked." End quote. So to recap, in order to not give a fuck, you need to give a fuck about something. I know it sounds sort of controversial and all that, but you need to remember that your fucks should be defined as energy, time, and money. If you don't care about something, then stop giving a fuck about it. Remember the not sorry method by Sarah Knight. Step 1, decide what you don't give a fuck about. And step 2, don't give a fuck about those things. It's easy, right? Also, remember to prioritize everything that you should give a fuck about. Your career, your business, time, money, health, goals, friends, family, and partner. And the things that you shouldn't really give a fuck about. And stop asking for approval. So remember, it's okay to say no thank you. I don't have the time. I can't afford it. I don't want to. This means there are no fucks given and you are not sorry. This week's shoutouts goes to our avid listeners. Twitter users Sam Vera and Ashiana. Also shout out to my SMT group on Twitter, Love you guys. And last but certainly not the least, shout out to my baby bear Belle. Love you always. Thank you for your continuous support on our podcast. Thank you for listening to Rhyme and Reason Podcast. You can support us by subscribing to our podcast on the Anchor app. The support for our podcast will allow us to produce more interesting episodes in the future. If you like that episode, please hit that like and that subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below to let us know what you think about the episode. Follow us on Twitter by clicking the link in the description. We have a weekly Twitter space so listeners can share their thoughts and insights about what they have gained from the podcast. We really love seeing your guys' support and receiving your comments, so if you have the time, do drop by, and who knows, you may just become one of our guests in an episode. See you next time.